I remember the exact moment I first saw her. The howling winds of Velmora 6 were particularly vicious that day, sand particles scraping against the reinforced viewports of Proxima Station like tiny claws desperate to get in. But as harsh as the desert world was outside, I knew something far more dangerous was about to step through our airlock. Lady Soraya de Vera, just her name carried weight across 3 star systems, daughter of the sovereign commander of the Veridian Alliance. Heiress to fortunes that could buy and sell entire moons, and absolutely impossible to deal with, according to every diplomatic brief I'd studied. Commander Cole, my second-in-command, muttered beside me. Security teams are in position, though between us they're more nervous about her than any actual threat. I nodded, adjusting my uniform collar. Technically, I outranked her, but in reality, power wasn't measured by the insignia on my shoulders, not when dealing with the de Veras. I didn't realize then that Soraya de Vera would be the storm far worse than anything Velmora 6 could unleash. And I had no idea how completely she would transform my life in the days to come. Commander Ethan Cole, I stepped forward, extending my hand in the human custom. Welcome to Proxima Station. She looked at my outstretched hand as if I'd offered her a dead rodent. The entourage behind her, a mix of security personnel and what appeared to be personal assistants, shifted uncomfortably. Commander, she finally said, her voice melodic, but with an edge like sharpened steel. How quaint to be greeted by the actual station commander, rather than someone of appropriate standing. I kept my hand extended, my face neutral. First test. Would she respect the diplomatic niceties? With visible reluctance, she extended her long, 6-fingered hand. Her skin was cool to the touch, and I noticed the subtle ridges along her knuckles, evolutionary remnants of defensive spines if I remembered my xenobiology correctly. I assure you, Lady de Vera, on Proxima Station, we consider it an honor for the commander to personally welcome distinguished guests. I released her hand and gestured toward the interior corridor. If you'll follow me, I've arranged for refreshments before we begin the security briefing. She made a sound that might have been a laugh if it contained any warmth. Security briefing. Oh, Commander Cole, you misunderstand my presence here. I'm not some diplomat requiring your protection protocols. I'm merely passing through. As we walked through the station's main thoroughfare, I became acutely aware of how every eye turned to watch our procession. Lady de Vera seemed to drink in the attention, her posture becoming even more regal, chin tilted at an angle that somehow managed to look down on everyone, including me, despite our similar heights. Your station is functional, she commented, running a finger along a wall panel. Though I imagine it must be difficult maintaining such dated technology. I bit back a retort. Proxima Station was actually top of the line, a showcase of human engineering and innovation. But I recognized the tactic for what it was, an attempt to establish dominance to put me on the defensive. We find it serves our needs efficiently, I replied evenly, though I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on potential improvements. The alliance between humans and Veridians is still relatively new. We have much to learn from each other. Her 3 eyes blinked in sequence, right, left, center. A sign of surprise if my cultural training was accurate. Learn from each other, she repeated, her tone making it clear she found the concept absurd. Commander, let's not pretend. Your species only recently mastered faster than light travel. Mine was building empires when your ancestors were still discovering fire. One of my officers, Lieutenant Jameson, stiffened beside me. I gave him a subtle hand signal to stand down. History is filled with younger civilizations bringing fresh perspectives to older ones, I countered smoothly. Innovation often comes from unexpected places. We reached the conference room I'd prepared for the security briefing. As her entourage filed in behind her, I caught a glimpse of what appeared to be weapons concealed beneath their formal attire. Expected, of course, no high-ranking Veridian traveled without protection. Before we begin, I said, would you care for refreshments? Our hydroponics bay recently produced an excellent harvest of Terran strawberries, and we've managed to synthesize a beverage that many Veridians find pleasant. She turned those 3 piercing eyes on me again. You've researched my preferences, Commander. I've researched Veridian preferences in general, I corrected. It seemed the courteous thing to do. For a moment, just a flicker, something like respect, crossed her features. Then it was gone, replaced by the same haughty disdain. Very well, I shall try your strawberries. As we left the conference room, she fell into step beside me closer than strictly necessary. I could feel the eyes of her entourage and my officers on us. "Tell me, Commander," she said, her voice lower now, almost intimate. "What do you know of Veridian cultural traditions, our personal space conventions, for instance?" The question seemed innocent enough, but something in her tone made me wary. "I understand that Veridians typically maintain a greater physical distance than humans find comfortable. 3 arms lengths is considered appropriate for formal situations." "Correct," she nodded approvingly. And yet, without warning, she reached out and poked me lightly on the shoulder with one long finger. I blinked in surprise but maintained my composure. "Lady De Vera." She did it again, this time poking my upper arm. "Interesting. Most beings would flinch or step away. Is there a purpose to this demonstration?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Perhaps." Another poke, this time to my chest, directly over my heart. "I'm curious about human responses. Your species is known for being particularly reactive to physical contact." By now, we'd reached the main corridor leading to the guest quarters. Several station personnel stopped to stare at the unusual sight of the Veridian noble repeatedly poking their commander. "Lady De Vera," I said quietly, "while I appreciate your interest in xenocultural studies, this is somewhat inappropriate in a public setting." "Inappropriate?" Her third eye widened slightly. "By whose standards, Commander? Surely not Veridian ones." She poked me again, harder this time in the ribs. I caught her wrist before she could withdraw it. Not roughly, but firmly enough to stop her. "By the standards of the commander of this station," I said, my voice low but clear. For a heartbeat, everyone around us froze. Her security detail tensed visibly, hands moving toward concealed weapons. My own officers looked alarmed. Lady De Vera's 3 eyes fixed on my hand around her wrist, then slowly traveled up to meet my gaze. I expected anger, perhaps even outrage. What I saw instead was fascination. "You dare to touch a De Vera without permission," she whispered, but there was no real venom in her words. If anything, she sounded intrigued. "You touched me without permission first," I pointed out reasonably. "Multiple times, in fact." For a moment longer, we stood like that, locked in a strange tableau. Then slowly, deliberately, I released her wrist. But before I could fully withdraw, I did something that would later be described as either the boldest or stupidest diplomatic move in recent history. I nipped at her fingers, not hard enough to hurt, just a quick, gentle bite that was over almost before it began. The corridor fell so silent I could hear the distant hum of the station's environmental systems. Lady De Vera's entourage looked horrified. My own officers seemed torn between shock and preparing for an imminent diplomatic catastrophe. Lady De Vera herself stood perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she laughed, a sound of genuine delight. "Well, Commander Cole," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the silent corridor, "it seems humans can still surprise me after all." Without another word, she swept past me toward the guest quarters, her entourage scrambling to keep up. As she passed, I could have sworn I saw her wink at me with her third eye, a gesture I'd been told was reserved for those of Veridian considered worthy of personal interest. Lieutenant Jameson appeared at my side, his expression a mixture of awe and horror. "Sir, did you just bite a Veridian noble?" "Not exactly," I muttered. "It was more of a symbolic gesture. A gesture that could have started an interstellar incident." I watched Lady De Vera's retreating form, the graceful way she moved despite her height, the subtle shimmer of her skin under the station lights. "Somehow, Lieutenant, I don't think it will." I had no idea just how right and how wrong I would turn out to be. I was deep in thought when the station's alert system blared to life, red warning lights pulsing along the walls. "Security breach in Sector 7, the automated voice announced calmly. "Unknown intruders detected. Security teams respond." I was on my feet, moving before the announcement finished, tapping my comm unit. "Coldest security, status report." Commander Chief of Security, Rodriguez's voice crackled through tension, evident even through the static. "Multiple hostiles breached the outer perimeter. They bypassed our sensor grid. Somehow we didn't detect them until they were already inside. Well, numbers, weapons. At least 8, possibly more. Heavy weaponry, military grade. And sir, they're heading directly for the guest quarters." My blood ran cold. Lady De Vera, this wasn't random. "Lock down all sectors. I want every available officer armed and responding. and get me a direct line to Lady DeVera's quarters. What? Sir, communications in that sector are already being jammed. I swore under my breath. I'm heading there now. Have a team meet me at Junction B17. As I grabbed my sidearm from the wall safe, my office door slid open to reveal Lieutenant Jameson already armed and breathless. Sir, you need to see this? He activated my office display, bringing up security footage from near the guest quarters. Bodies lay scattered in the corridor, Lady DeVera's security detail cut down with surgical precision. And walking calmly through the carnage was a group of figures into sleek black combat gear, their faces obscured by helmets with glowing red visors. Any sign of Lady DeVera? I demanded. Jameson shook his head. Nothing yet, but those aren't ordinary mercenaries, sir. That's Crimson Talon Equipment elite assassins. My mind raced. The Crimson Talons were legendary in certain circles professional killers who never failed and were said to charge fortunes for their services. Someone wanted Lady DeVera dead badly enough to hire the best. Send all available security to protect her. I ordered, checking my weapon, and notify the Veridian embassy immediately. The corridors were in controlled chaos as I made my way toward the guest quarters, officers and civilians moving with purpose, the station's emergency protocols kicking in smoothly. At least something was working as designed. At Junction B17, I met the security team, 4 officers armed with pulse rifles and shield generators. Not enough against Crimson Talons, but all we had. Planter Rodriguez asked tersely. We move and extract Lady DeVera if she's still alive, fall back to the secure bunker in Section 3. We advance cautiously, the corridors eerily silent except for the pulsing red alert lights. The normal bustle of station life had vanished, replaced by tense anticipation. As we approached the guest quarters, the signs of fighting became more evident. Scorch marks from energy weapons, smears of purple Veridian blood alongside the darker red of human security officers. Life signs, I whispered to Rodriguez, who was scanning with a handheld device. Multiple but faint. Can't distinguish between friendlies and hostiles. We reached a junction where the corridor split 3 ways. I signaled for the team to hold position while I assessed our options. That's when I heard a distinctive high-pitched whine of a Veridian disruptor pistol, followed by the deeper thrum of human weapons. The fight was still ongoing. This way, I gestured, moving toward the sound. We turned the corner and froze. 3 Crimson Talon assassins lay dead on the floor, their advanced armor punctured by precision shots. Beyond them, at the far end of the corridor, a makeshift barricade had been erected from furniture and wall panels, and behind it, firing methodically at another group of advancing assassins, was Lady Soraya DeVera herself. She was a vision of controlled fury, her formal attire discarded in favor of a form-fitting combat suit that must have been concealed beneath. Her silver hair was pulled back, and all 3 of her eyes were focused intently on her targets. Beside her, to my shock, was Chief Technician Lyra Wren, one of my most valued officers. Lyra was working frantically on a data pad while occasionally rising to fire over the barricade with her standard-issue sidearm. Cover me! I ordered Rodriguez, then sprinted toward the barricade during a lull in the firing. Commander Cole, Lady DeVera acknowledged without taking her eyes off the corridor ahead. How convenient of you to join us. Despite the situation, her tone still carried that aristocratic disdain. I had to admire her composure under fire. Lady DeVera, I see you've met Chief Wren. Lyra looked up briefly. Commander, thank goodness. She saved my life, sir. I was doing maintenance in the guest wing when the attack started. And proved unexpectedly useful, Lady DeVera added. Your technician has impressive skills for a human. Lyra's fingers flew over her data pad. I've almost got into their comm system. If I can disrupt their coordination. A barrage of fire interrupted her, forcing us all to duck behind the barricade. We need to move, I said. My team can provide covering fire while we fall back to the secure bunker. Lady DeVera regarded me coolly. I prefer to eliminate these insects rather than hide from them. With respect, Lady DeVera, they've cut off all escape routes except the maintenance tunnels. Even your combat skills won't overcome a dozen Crimson Talons in an open corridor. Her third eye narrowed. You recognize them. Hard to mistake their equipment, I replied grimly. Someone really wants you dead. Obviously, she fired another perfect shot, dropping an assassin who had ventured too far into the open. The question is who? Crimson Talons don't come cheap. Rodriguez's voice came through my comm. Commander, we've got more hostiles approaching from the east corridor. We're pinned down, I swore softly. Lady Devera, we're out of options. The maintenance tunnels are our only chance. For a tense moment, I thought she would refuse out of pure stubbornness. Then she fired one last shot and nodded curtly. Very well, Commander, lead the way, but I expect you to personally ensure my safety. Wouldn't have it any other way, I muttered. I turned to Lyra. The access panel, Section C14, she replied immediately. I can override the security lockout. Do it, I ordered, then signaled Rodriguez. On my mark, maximum suppressing fire. We're making a run for C14. We reached the panel just as the suppressing fire began to slacken. Lyra's fingers danced over the controls and the panel slid open with a hiss. Get in, I urged, practically shoving Lady Devera through the opening. She went with surprising grace. Lyra, following right behind. I fired a few covering shots back down the corridor, then dove in as the panel slid shut behind me. We found ourselves in a narrow maintenance tunnel bathed in dim emergency lighting. The air was warm and carried the scent of machine oil and recycled oxygen. Your officers, Lady Devera asked, surprising me with her concern. They have their orders to fall back to secondary positions. I tapped my comm. Rodriguez status? Clear for now, sir, but they're regrouping. We've fallen back to checkpoint Delta. I turned to Lyra. What were you able to learn from their comm system? She shook her head. Not enough, just fragments. But Commander, this isn't random. They knew exactly when and where Lady Devera would be. They had access to our security protocols, patrol schedules, everything. Inside information, I said grimly. But from which side, mine or hers? Lady Devera's three eyes fixed on me with laser intensity. Are you accusing me or my people of orchestrating an attack on ourselves? I'm considering all possibilities, I replied evenly, including that someone in your entourage might have betrayed you, or that someone on my station might have sold information. Her expression shifted subtly. Was that approval a reasonable approach, Commander? Though if one of my people betrayed me, they're already dead. The assassins were thorough. For a moment, a flash of genuine grief crossed her features. Despite her cold exterior, she'd lost people today, people I was responsible for. I'm sorry about your security detail, I said quietly. She looked away. They knew the risks of serving House Devera. We should keep moving, Lyra urged. These tunnels run throughout the station, but the Crimson Talons will figure out where we entered soon enough. I nodded. Which way to the secure bunker? This way, Lyra pointed down the tunnel. But there's something else you should know, Commander. Before communications were jammed, I detected a second ship docking in Base 7. Unscheduled, no transponder. A second team, I muttered. They're hedging their bets. Lady Devera's hand moved to her weapon. Or they're extremely determined. Let's move, I ordered. Lyra, take point. Lady Devera, stay between us. To my surprise, she didn't object to the arrangement falling into position without complaint. We moved swiftly through the narrow tunnels, the only sounds our breathing and the distant hum of the station's systems. After several minutes of silent progress, Lady Devera spoke softly. Commander Cole, there's something you should know. I glanced back at her. In the dim lighting, her skin had taken on a deeper purple hue, almost luminescent. I'm listening. My presence on your station isn't merely passing through, as I claimed. I was sent here specifically because we received intelligence about a potential threat. What kind of threat? She hesitated, which seemed uncharacteristic for her. My family, House Devera, isn't just wealthy. We control certain resources that are vital to Veridian security. And recently, there have been attempts to appropriate those resources. So this is about politics, after all. I kept my voice low, mindful of our precarious situation. No, she said sharply. It's personal. The Devera dynasty has enemies across multiple star systems. Rivals who would stop at nothing to see us fall. And you came here to a human station knowing you were being hunted. Her three eyes blinked in that sequential pattern again, right, left, center. I came here because Proxima Station has a reputation for excellent security and a commander who doesn't break under pressure. I almost stumbled at that. Was that an actual compliment? You researched me, I realized. Thoroughly, she admitted. Your handling of the Orion conflict was Impressive for a human. Before I could respond, Lyra stopped abruptly, holding up a hand for silence. We froze, listening intently. There it was, a faint, metallic scraping sound from somewhere ahead of us. "They're in the tunnels," Lyra whispered. I made a quick decision. Change of plan. We can't risk leading them to the secure bunker. I pointed to a side passage. That route leads to the cargo bays. More open space, but also more options for cover and potential weapons. Lady Devera nodded in agreement. "And your cargo workers might provide additional assistance. If they haven't been evacuated already," I said grimly. "Let's go." We changed direction, moving as quietly as possible through the increasingly warm tunnels. The environmental controls didn't prioritize comfort in these maintenance areas, and soon we were all sweating. As we navigated a particularly narrow section, Lady Devera and I ended up pressed close together, our shoulders touching. In the confined space, I became acutely aware of her alien physiology, the strange rhythm of her breathing, the subtle, spicy scent that seemed to emanate from her skin. "You're staring, Commander," she murmured, those three eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Professional assessment," I replied quietly. "You're holding up better than I expected for someone who arrived with 4 personal stylists." A ghost of a smile curved her lips. "There's a great deal about me you don't know, Commander Cole." Clearly. I paused, then asked the question that had been bothering me. "Why did you provoke me earlier, the poking?" She was silent for a moment, then answered with surprising honesty. "I was testing you. Veridian nobles are accustomed to others flinching away, showing deference. I wanted to see what you would do when pushed." And my response, the nip. Now she did smile fully. Unexpected and intriguing. Among Veridians, such a gesture would be considered either a grave insult or an intimate invitation, depending on context. And in our context, her third eye fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "That remains to be determined, doesn't it?" The moment was broken by Lyra's urgent whisper from ahead. "Commander, I'm picking up movement on my scanner, multiple signatures closing fast." I refocused immediately. "How far to the cargo bay access?" 20 meters, but they'll intercept us before we reach it." "Options." I looked to both women. Lady Devera checked her weapon. "I can provide a diversion. Draw them away while you two reach the cargo bay." "Not happening," I said flatly. "We stay together." "This is not the time for human sentimentality, Commander," she hissed. Logically, you're the target, which means you're the one they'll chase. And I'm not leaving you to face them alone." Something flickered in her expression, surprise perhaps, or something deeper. Lyra cleared her throat. "There might be another way. These maintenance tunnels have emergency fire suppression systems. If I can trigger them remotely..." "Do it," I ordered. Her fingers flew over her data pad. "Activating in 3, 2, 1. A deafening alarm blared through the tunnels, followed immediately by the hiss of fire suppressant foam flooding the passage behind us. "Run!" I shouted, no longer concerned about stealth. We sprinted toward the cargo bay access, the sounds of confusion and shouting echoing behind us as the assassins encountered the unexpected deluge of foam. Lyra reached the access panel first, quickly bypassing the security lockout. The panel slid open, revealing the vast expanse of Cargo Bay 3, currently semi-darkened due to the station's alert status. We slipped through the panel, closing behind us. The cargo bay was enormous, filled with shipping containers, loading equipment, and various supplies stacked in neat rows. Perfect for cover, but also perfect for ambush. "Lyra, can you get control of the bay's systems? Lights, doors, anything?" She nodded, already moving toward a nearby control terminal. "Give me 2 minutes." "We may not have 2 minutes," Lady Devera said tensely, her eyes scanning the darkened cargo bay. "Commander, look." Following her gaze, I saw what she'd noticed, the subtle movement of shadows between cargo containers, the glint of light reflecting off weapons. "They anticipated us," I muttered. "Lyra, find cover." Lady Devera with me. We moved swiftly behind a large shipping container as the first energy blast seared the air where we'd been standing. Lyra had wisely ducked behind a forklift data pad, still in hand as she worked. "Count," I asked Lady Devera, who was peering carefully around the edge of our cover. "At least 6 that I can see, positioned to cut off all exits." I checked my weapon power cell at 70%, not ideal for a prolonged firefight. "What about yours?" She glanced at her disruptor pistol. Half charge, enough to take out 3, maybe 4. So we're outnumbered and outgunned, I summarized grimly. Typical day at Proxima Station. To my surprise, she laughed softly. You humans and your inappropriate humor in the face of death. It's almost admirable. Just one of our many charming qualities, I replied, risking a quick look around the container. If we can make it to the maintenance lift in the northwest corner, we might have a chance to... My words were cut off as a barrage of fire forced us to duck back into cover. The shipping container we were using for protection began to glow with heat as sustained energy weapons slowly melted through the metal. This won't hold for long, Lady De Vera observed calmly. Then we don't stay here, I decided. I tapped my comm. Lyra's status. Almost there, Commander. Her voice crackled back. Just need another 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds, I muttered, scanning our surroundings for options. Lady De Vera suddenly gripped my arm, her fingers surprisingly strong. Commander, up there. She pointed to a gantry crane suspended above the cargo bay. If we can reach the control booth. I saw her plan immediately. High ground, excellent vantage point. I nodded approval. But getting there will require covering fire and perfect timing, she finished. I'll go first, draw their attention. You follow and provide suppressing fire from that position. She indicated a stack of smaller containers about halfway to the crane access ladder. Lady De Vera. Soraya, she interrupted. If we're going to die together, Commander, you might as well use my name. Something shifted between us in that moment, a barrier falling, a connection forming. Ethan, I offered in return, and we're not dying today, Soraya. Her 3 eyes held mine for a heartbeat. We shall see Ethan. Without further discussion, she suddenly rolled from behind our cover and fired 3 rapid shots in different directions. The move was so unexpected and graceful that she'd already made it halfway to the next cover position before the assassins could respond effectively. As soon as she was clear, I leaned out and provided covering fire targeting the muzzle flashes of enemy weapons. Most of my shots didn't connect, but they forced the assassins to duck back into cover, buying Soraya precious seconds. She reached her position safely, then gestured for me to make my move. I took a deep breath, preparing to sprint. That's when the cargo bay plunged into complete darkness. Lyra, I breathed, realizing she'd managed to hack the bay's systems. Taking advantage of the momentary confusion and ran toward the position Sarah had indicated, relying on memory and instinct to guide me through the darkness. Behind me, I heard the assassins shouting to each other, trying to regroup. I reached the stack of containers just as emergency red lighting flickered to life enough to see by, but creating disorienting shadows throughout the vast space. Clever human, Soraya's voice came from nearby. I turned to find her already climbing the access ladder to the crane control booth. I followed quickly, covering our ascent with occasional suppressing fire, when an assassin ventured into view. The assassins had realized our plan now and were concentrating their fire on the ladder and control booth. Almost there, Soraya called down to me as she reached the booth door. She quickly bypassed the lock and disappeared inside. I was 3 rungs from the top when a blast caught the ladder just below my feet, severing its connection to the catwalk. The ladder swung outward, suspended only by its top brackets. Ethan, Soraya reappeared at the doorway, extending her hand toward me. I swung precariously, the ladder groaning under my weight. With a silent prayer, I pushed off from the ladder with all my strength, launching myself toward her outstretched hand. Our fingers connected. For a heart-stopping moment, I thought she wouldn't be able to support my weight. Then with surprising strength, she pulled me upward until I could grab the edge of the doorway and haul myself inside. Impressive, I panted, rolling onto the floor of the small control booth. For a human, she quipped, already moving to the control console. For anyone, I admitted, joining her at the console. Through the booth's windows, we had a commanding view of the cargo bay and could see the assassins regrouping, clearly planning their next move. Can you operate this? I asked, gesturing to the complicated Veridian human hybrid controls. Of course. Her fingers flew across the interface. Though the crane itself isn't particularly useful as a weapon, too slow, too predictable. We don't need it as a weapon, I said, an idea forming. Just a distraction. I tapped my comm. Lyra position? Southeast corner, Commander, she whispered back. Behind the deuterium containers. I've managed to access the station's main systems, but they're jamming my attempts to call for backup. Can you seal the cargo bay doors, lock them in here with us? Already done, she confirmed. But they're cutting through the maintenance access panel. We have maybe 10 minutes before they have reinforcements. I turned to Soraya. Time to end this. If you can maneuver the crane to the south wall and create enough noise and movement to draw their attention, you'll circle around and flank them, she finished, already programming the controls. Basic tactical maneuver, but effective if executed properly. Precisely. Lyra will provide additional distraction by cycling the emergency lights. Soraya's eyes met mine, all three of them gleaming with what I could only describe as anticipation. You realize this plan has approximately a 30% chance of success. In my experience, that's about 10% better odds than we usually get. I checked my weapon one last time. Ready when you are. She nodded, then activated the crane controls. The massive machinery roared to life, hydraulics hissing as the giant arm began to swing across the cargo bay. Simultaneously, the emergency lights began to flicker in an erratic pattern, creating disorienting strobe effects. I didn't wait to see the assassin's reaction. I slipped out of the control booth onto the catwalk and moved silently along the edge of the cargo bay, using the shadows and confusion to mask my approach. Below, the assassins had indeed turned their attention to the suddenly active crane, several of them firing ineffectively at the control booth where they assumed both of us remained. I positioned myself on a walkway directly above three of the assassins who had clustered together. Taking careful aim, I fired at a pressure valve on a nearby steam pipe. The valve ruptured exactly as intended, releasing a scalding cloud of steam that enveloped the assassins. Their screams were cut short as I dropped down into the cloud, dispatching them quickly before they could recover. From across the cargo bay, I heard the distinctive sound of Soraya's disruptor pistol firing repeatedly. She hadn't stayed in the control booth as planned, but had instead descended to engage the enemy directly. Typical, I thought, with a mixture of admiration and exasperation. I worked my way toward her position, using the cargo containers for cover. The remaining assassins were now caught between us, trying to deal with threats from multiple directions. I spotted one taking aim at Soraya from behind a forklift. Without hesitation, I fired, catching the assassin in the shoulder. Not a killing shot, but enough to spin them around toward me. Before they could reorient, Soraya had put a disruptor bolt through their chest. Our eyes met across the distance, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between us, a recognition, a connection. We moved in perfect synchronization then, as if we'd trained together for years. When I advanced, she provided covering fire. When she reloaded, I eliminated any threat that moved toward her. The last assassin tried to retreat toward the maintenance access panel that Lyra had warned was being breached from the outside. They never made it. Caught in crossfire from three directions, Soraya, myself, and unexpectedly from Lyra, who had emerged from cover with surprising courage, they fell within seconds. A sudden silence fell over the cargo bay, broken only by the hiss of ruptured steam pipes and the distant alarm still blaring throughout the station. Clear, I called out, still alert for any movement. Clear, Soraya confirmed, stepping out from behind a container, her weapon still at the ready. Lyra emerged as well, looking shaken but determined. Commander Station Security reports the remaining Crimson Talons are retreating. They've lost contact with the team and are falling back to their ship. I allowed myself to breathe a little easier, though I kept my weapon ready. Good. Make sure Rodriguez secures all docking bays. I don't want any of them leaving this station. Yes, sir. She tapped at her data pad, then looked up with a furrowed brow. Commander, I'm also picking up some unusual data traffic. Someone accessed the classified section of our database during the attack. A diversion. I glanced at Soraya, who had moved closer, her expression alert. Possibly. Lyra's fingers flew across the screen. The access point was in the diplomatic quarter using Veridian credentials. Soraya tensed beside me. House Talon, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. This was never just about eliminating me. They wanted information. What kind of information would be worth hiring Crimson Talons as a distraction? I asked. She hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Commander Cole, Ethan, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels of Veridian security. My father would have me executed for sharing it with a human. Then perhaps you shouldn't. No, she interrupted firmly. You've earned the right to know. You've risked your life and your station for me. She took a deep breath. House de Vera doesn't just control resources. We control access to weapons technology linked to our genetic line. specifically to me. Genetic weapons, I asked, trying to understand the implications. Not exactly. The weapons themselves are conventional planet killers, but conventional in design, but they can only be activated by someone with Devera genetic markers. It's a failsafe my ancestors built in to prevent misuse. Understanding dawned. And as the Sovereign Commander's daughter, you carry those markers. She nodded grimly. The purest form. My DNA can unlock the entire arsenal. So House Talon wasn't trying to kill you, I realized. They wanted to capture you, extract what they needed. Yes, and while the Crimson Talons kept us busy, they accessed your station's database to locate something else: the control protocols for those weapons. Protocols that I transmitted here for safekeeping before I arrived. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process the magnitude of what she was telling me. So you didn't come here just passing through. You came here deliberately to secure those protocols. I came here, she said quietly, because intelligence suggested House Talon had infiltrated the Veridian diplomatic corps. I needed somewhere secure, somewhere with a commander I could trust to protect both myself and the protocols, until my father's security forces could eliminate the threat. And you chose my station. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Without warning me, without giving me all the information. You put my entire crew at risk. Her three eyes met mine unflinchingly. Yes, and I would do it again, because the alternative was allowing weapons capable of destroying entire worlds to fall into the hands of those who would use them without hesitation. We stared at each other in tense silence. Part of me wanted to be furious with her for using my station, my people, as pawns in her political game. But another part, the part that had been in command long enough to understand impossible choices, recognized the logic in her decision. Commander, Lyra interrupted gently, we should move to a secure location. Even if the assassins are retreating, the station isn't safe yet. I nodded, forcing myself to focus on the immediate situation. You're right, let's get to the command bunker. We can sort out the rest from there. As we made our way toward the cargo bay exit, Shreya suddenly touched my arm. The gesture was so unexpected that I stopped in my tracks. Ethan, she said, using my first name deliberately. I know you have every reason to distrust me now, but I want you to know that not everything was calculation. Not everything was strategy. What does that mean? I asked, searching her alien features for some sign of deception. Her third eye, the one in the center of her forehead, blinked slowly, a gesture of sincerity among Veridians. It means that while I chose your station for strategic reasons, I chose you because I believed you were different. Because I thought that if anyone could understand the impossible position I was in, it would be you. Something in her voice and the way her eyes held mine made me believe her despite everything. I understand impossible choices, Soraya. I've made enough of them myself. The ghost of a smile touched her lips. I know. It's why I bit back when you bit me. That startled a laugh out of me, the tension suddenly broken. I thought that was just your way of testing me. It was, she admitted, but very few passed my test, Commander Cole. Very few indeed. We reached the command bunker without further incident. Inside, Rodriguez and a skeleton crew of my most trusted officers were monitoring the station's systems and coordinating the cleanup operations. They snapped to attention when we entered. Commander, Rodriguez reported briskly, all remaining Crimson Talons have been contained or eliminated. Veridian reinforcements have just dropped out of hyperspace and are requesting permission to dock. Granted, I ordered, and prepare a full security briefing on the House Talon infiltration of the diplomatic quarter. Sir, Rodriguez looked confused. Lady Devera will explain, I said, gesturing toward her. She has information vital to station security. Soraya inclined her head gracefully, acknowledging the trust I was placing in her. Indeed, your station has been caught in the crossfire of a Veridian power struggle, and you deserve to know why. Over the next hour, she briefed my senior staff on the situation, carefully omitting certain classified details while providing enough context for them to understand the threat we'd faced. Throughout, I watched her, the way she commanded the room, despite being the only non-human present, the intelligence and strategic thinking evident in her explanations, the subtle vulnerability that occasionally showed through her regal facade. When the briefing concluded and my officers dispersed to their duties, Soraya approached me again, this time with a formal datapad in hand. My father's security force will handle the remaining House Talon agents, she said, and I must return to Veridian space immediately. Of course, I replied, ignoring the unexpected pang of disappointment. I'll arrange for a security escort to your ship. Thank you, but that's not necessary. She held out the datapad. This contains official commendations for you and your crew. The Sovereign Commander extends his personal gratitude for your service at House Devera. I accepted the datapad with a nod. We were just doing our duty. Were you, her third eye fixed on me with that unnerving intensity, when you rushed into danger for a Veridian noble you just met, when you risked your life repeatedly for someone who, by your own admission, had put your station at risk? Was that merely duty? Commander Cole. I met her gaze steadily. What would you call it? Among my people, we would call it Therival, she said softly. The connection between warriors who have faced death together. It is rare between our species. Therival, I repeated, trying to match her pronunciation. Does it have any other meaning? A smile curved her lips, a genuine one this time, not the calculated expression she'd shown earlier. It has many meanings, Ethan. Perhaps someday you'll learn them all. Before I could respond, the bunker's communication system chimed. Commander Lyra's voice came through. The Veridian diplomatic vessel is prepared for Lady Devera's departure. Acknowledge, I replied, not taking my eyes from Soraya's face. We'll be right there. As we walked together toward the docking bay, I found myself searching for the right words. Something to acknowledge the strange connection that had formed between us in such a short, intense time. You know, I finally said, when you first arrived, I thought you were just another arrogant noble wasting my time. She laughed, the sound musical and surprisingly warm. And I thought you were just another human playing at authority. It seems we both had much to learn. We reached the docking bay where a ceremonial guard of both human and Veridian officers had assembled to see her off. Her royal shuttle gleamed under the bay lights, its elegant design a stark contrast to the utilitarian surroundings of Proxima Station. Commander Cole, she said formally for the benefit of those watching, I thank you for your hospitality and your station's protection during this unexpected crisis. Lady Devera, I replied with equal formality. Proxima Station is honored to have been of service to the Veridian Alliance. Lyra emerged as well, looking shaken but determined. Commander Station Security reports the remaining Crimson Talons are retreating. They've lost contact with this team and are falling back to their ship. I allowed myself to breathe a little easier, though I kept my weapon ready. Good. Make sure Rodriguez secures all docking bays. I don't want any of them leaving this station. Yes, sir. She tapped at her datapad, then looked up with concern. Commander, I'm also picking up some unusual data traffic. Someone accessed the classified section of our database during the attack. A diversion. I glanced at Soraya, who had moved closer, her expression alert. Possibly. Lyra's fingers flew across the screen. The access point was in the diplomatic quarter using Veridian credentials. Soraya tensed beside me. House Talon, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. This was never just about eliminating me. They wanted information. What kind of information would be worth hiring Crimson Talons as a distraction? I asked. She hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Commander Cole, Ethan, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels of Veridian security. Then perhaps you shouldn't... No, she interrupted firmly. You've earned the right to know. You've risked your life and your station for me. She took a deep breath. House Devera doesn't just control resources. We control access to weapons technology linked to our genetic line, specifically to me. Genetic weapons, I asked, trying to understand the implications. Not exactly. The weapons themselves are conventional planet killers, but conventional in design. But they can only be activated by someone with Devera genetic markers. It's a fail-safe my ancestors built in to prevent misuse. Understanding dawned. And as the Sovereign Commander's daughter, you carry those markers. She nodded grimly. The purest form. My DNA can unlock the entire arsenal. So House Talon wasn't trying to kill you, I realized. They wanted to capture you, extract what they needed. Yes, and while the Crimson Talons kept us busy, they accessed your station's database to locate something else, the control protocols for those weapons. Protocols that I transmitted here for safekeeping before I arrived. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process the magnitude of what she was telling me. So you didn't come here just passing through. You came here deliberately to secure those protocols. They came here, she said quietly, Because intelligence suggested House Talon had infiltrated the Veridian diplomatic corps. I needed somewhere secure, somewhere with a commander I could trust to protect both myself and the protocols until my father's security forces could eliminate the threat. And you chose my station. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Without warning me, without giving me all the information, you put my entire crew at risk. Her three eyes met mine unflinchingly. Yes, and I would do it again, because the alternative was allowing weapons capable of destroying entire worlds to fall into the hands of those who would use them without hesitation. We stared at each other in tense silence. Part of me wanted to be furious with her for using my station, my people as pawns in her political game. But another part, the part that had been in command long enough to understand impossible choices, recognized the logic in her decision. Commander Lyra interrupted gently. We should move it to a secure location. The station isn't completely safe yet. I nodded, forcing myself to focus on the immediate situation. You're right, let's get to the command bunker. As we made our way toward the cargo bay exit, Soraya touched my arm. Ethan, she said, using my first name deliberately, I know you have every reason to distrust me now, but I want you to know that not everything was calculation. Not everything was strategy. What does that mean? I asked, eyes searching her alien features. Her third eye blinked slowly, a gesture of sincerity among Veridians. It means that while I chose your station for strategic reasons, I chose you because I believed you were different, because I thought that if anyone could understand the impossible position I was in, it would be you. Something in her voice made me believe her despite everything. I understand impossible choices, Soraya. I've made enough of them myself. A small smile touched her lips. I know. It's why I bit back when you bit me. That startled a laugh out of me, the tension suddenly broken. I thought that was just your way of testing me. It was, she admitted. But very few passed my test, Commander Cole. Very few indeed. We reached the command bunker without further incident. Inside, Rodriguez and my most trusted officers were coordinating the cleanup operations. Commander, Rodriguez reported briskly, all remaining Crimson Talons have been contained or eliminated. Veridian reinforcements have just dropped out of hyperspace and are requesting permission to dock. Granted, I ordered, and prepare a full security briefing on the House Talon infiltration of the diplomatic quarter. Sir, Rodriguez looked confused. Lady De Vera will explain, I said, gesturing toward her. She has information vital to station security. Soraya inclined her head gracefully, acknowledging the trust I was placing in her. Indeed, your station has been caught in the crossfire of a Veridian power struggle, and you deserve to know why. Over the next hour, she briefed my senior staff on the situation, carefully omitting certain classified details, while providing enough context for them to understand the threat we'd faced. When the briefing concluded and my officers dispersed to their duties, Soraya approached me again, this time with a formal datapad in hand. My father's security forces will handle the remaining House Talon agents, she said, and I must return to Veridian space immediately. Of course, I replied, ignoring an unexpected pang of disappointment. I'll arrange for a security escort to your ship. Thank you, but that's not necessary. She held out the datapad. This contains official commendations for you and your crew. The Sovereign Commander extends his personal gratitude for your service to House De Vera. I accepted the datapad with a nod. We were just doing our duty. Were you... her third eye fixed on me with that unnerving intensity. When you rushed into danger for a Veridian noble you just met, when you risked your life repeatedly for someone who by your own admission had put your station at risk, was that merely duty, Commander Cole? I met her gaze steadily. What would you call it? Among my people, we would call it therival, she said softly. The connection between warriors who have faced death together. It is rare between our species. Therival, I repeated, trying to match her pronunciation. Does it have any other meaning? A genuine smile curved her lips. It has many meanings, Ethan. Perhaps someday you'll learn them all. Before I could respond, the bunker's communication system chimed. Commander Lyra's voice came through. The Veridian diplomatic vessel is prepared for Lady De Vera's departure. Acknowledged, I replied, not taking my eyes from Soraya's face. We'll be right there. As we walked together toward the docking bay, I found myself searching for the right words to acknowledge the strange connection that had formed between us. You know, I finally said when you first arrived, I thought you were just another arrogant noble wasting my time. She laughed, the sound musical and surprisingly warm. And I thought you were just another human playing at authority. It seems we both had much to learn. We reached the docking bay where a ceremonial guard of both human and Veridian officers had assembled to see her off. Her royal shuttle gleamed under the bay lights, its elegant design a stark contrast to the utilitarian surroundings of Proxima Station. "Commander Cole," she said formally for the benefit of those watching, "I thank you for your hospitality and your station's protection during this unexpected crisis." "Lady de Vera," I replied with equal formality. "Proxima Station is honored to have been of service to the Veridian Alliance." We clasped hands in the formal diplomatic gesture, but as I began to withdraw, she held on, pulling me slightly closer. "This isn't goodbye, Ethan," she murmured too softly for others to hear. "A terrible bond once formed cannot be broken by mere distance." "What are you saying?" I asked, equally quiet. "I'm saying that House de Vera will require an official liaison from the human territories. Someone who understands our ways, who has proven their worth in combat and strategy." Her third eye gleamed with mischief. "Someone who isn't afraid to bite back when bitten." Before I could respond, she released my hand and turned toward her shuttle with regal grace. I watched as she boarded her silver hair, catching the light one last time before she disappeared inside. As the shuttle's engines powered up, Lyra appeared at my side. "Commander, there's something you should know. While analyzing the data breach, I found something unusual. Lady de Vera didn't just transmit weapons protocols to our station. She also accessed your personal file weeks before her arrival." I frowned, turning to look at her. "My file? What was she looking for?" "I'm not sure." Lyra handed me a data pad. "But according to the logs, she spent hours reviewing your combat record, your tactical decisions during the Orion conflict, even your personal history." I stared at the logs, a realization slowly dawning. She didn't choose this station randomly. She chose me, specifically. Lyra nodded. "It appears so, sir. And there's one more thing." She hesitated. "The Crimson Talons breached our security too easily, almost as if they'd been guided." I finished her thought, watching as Soraya's shuttle glided smoothly out of the docking bay. "As if someone wanted to create a situation where we'd be forced to work together." "You think she arranged the entire attack?" Lyra asked, clearly shocked. I considered the question, thinking back to everything that had happened, the way Soraya had handled herself in combat, her perfect timing, her surprising skills. A slow smile spread across my face. "Not the entire attack. House Talon is real, and their threat is genuine. But I think Lady Soraya de Vera engineered certain circumstances to test me, to see if I was truly worthy of the role she had in mind." "And are you, sir?" Lyra asked quietly. I watched as the Veridian shuttle disappeared into the vast expanse of space and thought of Soraya's parting words. A liaison position would mean regular diplomatic missions to Veridian space, regular meetings with the daughter of the Sovereign Commander, regular opportunities to learn more about the meanings of Therival. "I suppose I'll find out," I said, still smiling. "Some storms you don't survive, Lyra. You learn to dance with them." In the days that followed, Proxima Station returned to normal operations. The damage was repaired, the security protocols upgraded, and the diplomatic quarter thoroughly investigated for any remaining House Talon influence. But some things had changed permanently. I found myself looking at the stars differently, wondering which one Soraya was orbiting now. And occasionally, when reviewing intelligence reports or diplomatic communiques, I would catch myself touching the spot on my wrist where I had nipped her fingers, a gesture that had apparently meant far more in her culture than I'd realized. 2 weeks after her departure, a priority message arrived from Veridian High Command. The Sovereign Commander himself requested that I consider a position as the first human liaison to House de Vera, a role that would require frequent travel between our territories and regular consultation with his daughter on matters of interspecies security. As I composed my acceptance, I couldn't help but wonder if Soraya was watching from somewhere, those 3 intelligent eyes gleaming with satisfaction at a game well played. I had been manipulated, tested, and challenged by the arrogant Heiress, and I had never felt more alive. Lyra Wren uncovers secret files as I prepare for my first diplomatic mission to Veridian space. "Commander," she says, handing me a datapad, "I found something you should see before you leave." Lady Devera's personal files indicate this wasn't just about finding a liaison. According to Veridian tradition, a leader can only marry someone who has proven their worth in both combat and intellect, someone who can match them as an equal. I stare at the datapad, understanding dawning. So, the test the Theraval bond. Lyra nods, her expression somewhere between amusement and concern. It appears, sir, that you may have inadvertently participated in the first stage of a Veridian royal courtship. As my shuttle departs for Veridian space, I can't help but smile. Some storms you don't survive. You learn to dance with them. Hey everyone, thanks for staying with me through this interstellar adventure. If you enjoyed this tale of unlikely connections across the stars, hit that subscribe button for more stories that blend action, romance, and the unexpected. Drop a comment letting me know what you thought about Commander Cole and Lady Devera's journey. Would you have bitten back or played it safe? And don't forget to share with friends who might need a reminder that sometimes the most powerful lessons come from those we least expect to learn from. Until next time, keep looking to the stars.